It seems there has been no attempt by any Albanese government minister to speak to their Chinese counterpart after the shocking military intimidation of our Navy helicopter. Anthony Albanese didn't reach out to Chinese President Xi Jinping. And remember, he also didn't raise the attack on our Navy divers with him last year either. My colleague Andrew Clennell today revealed that foreign ministers haven't been involved either. This contradicts the comments that the Prime Minister made just yesterday.
We have made very strong representations at every level to China about this incident, which we regard as unprofessional and unacceptable. One of the things that had broken down over a period of time was any dialogue. And that's why we've used all of those avenues of communication to make our position on this incident very clear.
OK, let's bring in tonight's political panel, National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie and Sky News contributor Sam Crosby. Welcome to you both. Sam, look, there's little more important than defending our military, especially when they're attacked. I mean, our soldiers, our Navy personnel are literally putting their life on the line for all of us. And especially after that debacle last year with the sonar attack, shouldn't Albanese have directly called Xi over this when he knew that the media were going to ask questions?
Look, it's a good question, Sharri, and I sincerely hope that the Prime Minister clears up in the next couple of days exactly what's happened and who's been spoken to at what level of government. I guess there's 2 points that struck me about today's story. The first is that there's sometimes a good reason why you wouldn't want to start at the absolute pinnacle, at the absolute top, from Prime Minister to Premier. You would want to go through a process so that there's somewhere to appeal. So when one level of diplomacy fails, you can then go to the next level and so on and so forth. The second thing that struck me, and look, it's not up to me to give Peter Dutton political advice. It was a particularly worrying thing when I saw the opposition leader breaking a very strong bipartisan commitment of some 30 or 40 years of oppositions to back governments in this instance. I understand and respect that he's a former defence minister himself, so the urge is always going to be there. But it was particularly worrying to have him out there freelancing and saying, well, the Prime Minister should do X and Y and Z. You know, at times like this, you need to speak with one voice. The government of Australia has the only voice in this debate. And it's not up to any opposition leader, Labor, Liberal, whatever, to be getting in there and freelancing with their own views.
Look, I'll get your view on that, Bridget, whether you think it's appropriate that Peter Dutton had his own view on how the Prime Minister should handle this, near collision that would have been terrifying for our Navy personnel who are in that chopper. But I also want to comment on the Prime Minister's language. It wasn't just that he doesn't appear to have called President Xi. It was also the language and the tone when he made public comments about this. He didn't seem genuinely furious like he should have. His comments were very measured, very calm. This is a near collision, a potential attack on our Navy personnel. Why isn't he angrier about it? Bridget McKenzie.
Yeah, thanks, Sharri. Great to be with you. This was a dangerous, it was provocative and aggressive action by China against our ADF. And it was the second such action in less than 6 months. And so it did deserve and does deserve a very, very stringent and strict and strong approach from our Prime Minister. What I was concerned about in those comments, having heard the breaking news today, was the Prime Minister was not unequivocal. He wasn't saying, I'm going to call in the ambassador or I'm going to do this or that. He used a collective we. And that, in my mind, and I'm sure the Australian public's mind, was that a raft of measures were going to be used, that minister to minister conversations were going to be had. The Defence Minister would be talking to his counterpart. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Penny Wong, would be speaking to her counterpart. And obviously the ambassador would be hauled in to have very stern words from the Prime Minister. That didn't happen.
But
and I think that is concerning.
What do you think about this, suggestion from Sam that Dutton shouldn't have criticised the PM on foreign policy?
We're talking about aggressive behaviour from China against our ADF. That does deserve a strong response from the Prime Minister. That does a much better response than he's given thus far. And I'm disappointed with the lacklustre efforts from the PM. Our whole system of government relies on a sense of ministerial responsibility. And right now, you are seeing a complete lack of it from the PM down.
All right,
and you
Sam?
can't get much more serious than this.
Sam, what do you think about that?
Look, I think Bridget is absolutely correct. This is incredibly serious, and that's why it is so worrying, and that's why Foreign Affairs has traditionally been sacrosanct for oppositions to back the government. I mean, the last time I think that you had an opposition leader freelance like this, I think would have been Mark Latham, you know, when Australia was going into war in Iraq with then President Bush. I think that was the last time. Every opposition, Labor, Liberal, every opposition leader since then has stood shoulder to shoulder with the government in far less perilous times than when our troops are coming under near attack in the South China Sea. Yeah.
But Sam, you've got a Prime Minister that we can't trust. This guy has basically told the Australian public following this incident that they've all got it under control. He's using every diplomatic measure available when the facts absolutely do not point to that. And so in that instance, we're not going to be backing in a guy that is loose with the truth on these matters to the Australian public. That would be ridiculous.
I'm sorry, Senator. Go through the time frame again. Peter Dutton was out there on day one saying what should happen. And in the case that you're saying that you can't trust the Prime Minister, my goodness, do you really think now is the time in the face of China to be going out there and saying, no, we've got a difference of opinion? Is that really the time that you think is a good idea of doing this? Or do you think you should handle this more soberly, approaching the Prime Minister behind the scenes and saying, here's what we think you've done wrong and here's where I think you should go right, and being a constructive force?
I'll tell you what I reckon. I reckon it's fine to back in.
I hope
the
Defence Minister and Dutton have had a briefing from the government on this incident.
I think it's fine to back in the Prime Minister on foreign policy and to have a bipartisan position if he has a strong position. But I think what we've seen from Anthony Albanese, particularly in the past year, is that he's shifted Australia's foreign policy. You know, he's put the bilateral relationship with China over strongly defending our sovereignty. On Israel, I mean, don't even get me started on Israel, but the foreign policy was nothing like what it has been under both Labor and the coalition in many previous successive governments. So, I take your point, Sam. Normally there would be bipartisanship on foreign policy, but it's just that foreign policy has shifted so dramatically
Sharri,
under Albanese.
I hate to disagree with you on your own show. It's incredibly rude, I know.
No, it's not. This is free speech. This is what we have a debate for. We are out of time, though, and I'm not going to cut you off because you're disagreeing with me.
That Australia has somehow sold itself out to China. I just can't accept that.
I didn't go that far, but I said the balance of the relationship, it's putting the bilateral relationship above our sovereignty. That is my view. We are out of time, and not because you disagree with me. I love debate, more than happy to have it. We'll have you on again, Sam. And I did want to ask you about cost of living because I know you work with the homeless, but we are literally out of time.